Simultaneous interpretation is provided throughout the event. Please use the receiver on your table. Channel 1 is for Korean and Channel 2 is for English. We are going to conduct this host in Korean mostly, but we have 2 overseas speakers. So please use the interpretation receivers on your table. Channel 1 is for Korean, Channel 2 English. After the program, please place the receivers on your table so that we can collect them. Sometimes even I, your announcer, forget placing the receiver on the table. So please don't forget to bring your receiver on your table. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Our VIPs are coming to the hall. Please give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Our valuable panelists and speakers are coming to the hall. Please give a big round of applause. They are all experts in the water area in and out of Korea. Thank you very much for your participation. Now I'd like to declare the opening of today's event. Nice to meet you, everyone. Welcome to the International Forum on Water Positive Korea 2026. My name is Jung Da-hee, your MC today. On Friday, March 20th. So on this beautiful spring day, you are here to participate in today's event. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. This forum marks the second Water Positive International Forum following last year, and it is especially meaningful as it has grown significantly in scale. I'm very happy to see our budget grow and our panelists participating in this event grow as well. Before we begin, let me briefly walk you through today's program. First and foremost, simultaneous interpretation is provided throughout the event. Please use the receiver on your table. Channel 1 is for Korean and Channel 2 is for English. After the program, please make sure that you place the receiver on your table. Let me briefly walk you through today's program. Today's program will begin with participant introductions, followed by opening remarks from Director General Cho Hee-sung of the Ministry of Environment, and then a commemorative photo session with distinguished guest speakers and panelists. After the photo session, we'll begin with the first keynote presentation by our international speakers. And Mr. Koo and Mr. Park will also give a presentation. And then we will have a 30-minute Q&A and panel discussion. So it will be a very fruitful event for all of you. We hope that this event will serve as a very important opportunity to talk about the future of water resources. Now let us officially begin the International Forum on Water Positive Korea 2026. So we have started with your big round of applause. Now let me introduce our distinguished guest. Please welcome them with a warm round of applause. First and foremost, Director General Cho Hee-sung from the Ministry of Environment is with us. He is making the national water resources strategies. And among all attendees, he may have traveled the farthest. Please welcome Mr. William Sarney, Water and Nature Practice Lead at Earth Finance, who has joined us from New York, the U.S. Next, we are also honored to have Alexis Morgan, Global Water Stewardship Lead at WWF, joining us from Canada. Please welcome with a big round of applause, everyone. Next, Mr. Gu Tae-hwan, head of the team at Samsung Electronics, has joined us. He is going to talk about the technologies and the future directions of the company. And finally, our last speaker, Mr. Park Dong-hwa, head of the Environment Division at K-Water, is also with us. Next, let me introduce the speakers who will share valuable insights and brilliant ideas through today's panel discussion. Mr. Park Hyung-gun, professor of Inha University, and Mr. Cho Eun-jae of the new growth strategy of K-Water is with us today. We also have a lot of participants who are participating in this event despite busy schedule, but I'm sorry that I'm not able to introduce each one of you, but thank you very much for joining us today. Next, let me introduce Mr. Cho Hee-song for the opening remark. Please welcome with a big round of applause.
Hello, nice to meet you. From Ministry of Climate, Energy and Environment, my name is Cho Hee-sung, Director of General of Water Management Policy Department. And thank you all for participating from various countries. And I'd like to thank every distinguished guest in this room. So today's gathering will serve as an important opportunity to discuss the water positive future vision and to spread global water restoration strategies domestically. As you know all, South Korea has suffered from serious water pollution problems over the past few decades due to rapid urban expansion and industrialization. Until even the late 1980s, water quality improvement was pushed down the priority list amidst industry-oriented policies. So starting in the 1990s, as a result, serious water quality accidents began to occur. Accordingly, the government has revised numerous relevant laws and systems, such as the Water Environmental Conservation Act for water quality management of public water bodies like rivers, and the Water Supply Act for supplying high-quality water to the public in order to supply clean water to the people. Subsequently, the Total Water Pollution Load Management System was implemented, and the management of trace hazardous substances was strengthened. As a result, the water supply rate has recently reached 99%, enabling everyone to receive clean water, and the integrated water management of quantity and quality has also been successfully carried out. Nevertheless, the recent normalization of climate crisis, marked by frequent floods and droughts, remains a major challenge for us. To continue sustainable water management policies, we need extensive research, cooperation with the private sector, and implementation capabilities. So our ministry has been forming a water-positive cooperation involving the public and private sectors, including domestic companies and public institutions, since 2024. And in 2025, the Shinpung wetland near Changheun Dam, which had deteriorated and lost its function, was restored to improve the aquatic ecosystem and create a space for residents, and various water-positive projects are being promoted. In particular, regarding this Sand Spring Creation Project, I personally attended the signing ceremony, and it's significant in that stable supply of water to our soldiers serving in remote mountainous areas demonstrates that practice of corporate social responsibility leads to tangible results for the public. Going forward, the Climate Department will meet these expectations. We will actively support global water sector initiatives. I believe that diverse ideas and discussion presented at today's forum will be a great driving force for the spread of water positive in Korea and the development of international cooperation models. In addition, we look forward to this being an opportunity to deliberate on future mid to long-term strategies and seek feasible solutions. Once again, I'd like to thank distinguished guests participating in this event despite your busy schedule. And I believe that this will serve as an opportunity to further spread the value of water. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cho Hee-sung, for your opening remarks. As you well mentioned, this event will be a very meaningful event for all of you. Next, we'll proceed with the commemorative photo session. The photo session will be conducted with our distinguished guest speakers and the moderator and the panelists of the panel discussion. May I ask the 7 distinguished guests to come up onto the stage following the guidance of our staff members. We are going to invite the 7 distinguished guests to take the photos together before we officially begin the program. So we are joined by distinguished guests in and out of Korea, so please stand in the middle of the stage and look at the camera in front of you. Please give us a big smile. Please look at the camera and give us your bright smile. Next, fighting pose. This concludes the photo session. Please return to your seats. Whenever we have a photo session with the international guest, many people say that fighting pose is kind of a broken English, but this is a very encouraging pose, I think. Next, let us begin the main program of the forum. As you're well aware, today's theme is Transition Transforming Water Management Through Water Positive Practices. As this is a second international forum, many of you may already be familiar with the term water positive. But I believe there are still some, like myself, for whom the term may be unfamiliar. Now, to begin the second Water Positive International Forum, we will proceed with the first keynote presentation. He has contributed to defining the concept of water positive. Last year, he joined us online, but this year, he has kindly made time to be with us in person. I have a lot of expectations to the keynote speaker, Mr. William Sarney, Water and Nature Practice Lead at Earth Finance. He will present on corporate water strategy. Please give a big round of applause.
So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm very fortunate. This is my second time in Korea, and really enjoy being back. So this is one of my favorite topics, corporate water strategy and some of the changes that are going on, and in particular what innovation looks like, not just in technology, but in particular with respect to partnerships, because that will be how we solve wicked water challenges. So a little bit about me. which I believe is important because it shapes my view of the world and what I have dedicated my career to focusing on. So my origin, I started as a hydrogeologist. That's me in the middle, much younger, much thinner, and pretty naive. But I learned a lot, in particular from the gentleman on the left, who was a very accomplished hydrogeologist from Switzerland. I view myself, and I think many people that I know and work with, hopefully including Alexis, views me as a fearless optimist. I believe we can solve the water challenges. It doesn't mean they're easy, but I believe that humanity can solve these challenges. And I gravitate to unreasonable people. And what I mean by that is that unreasonable people change the world. They challenge the status quo, and they refuse to settle. So that's how I spend my time. I'm focused on corporate water strategy, but also technology innovation in partnerships, new business models, things like that, and investing in water tech and ag tech. So that's a little bit about my background. That has been my journey, my career. I talk a lot about wicked water problems and wicked water solutions. And for me, this is an important way to think about challenging issues such as water and climate, energy, social issues, and so on. Wicked problems are not complex. They're fundamentally different. So just very quickly, some of the attributes. They defy linear solutions. So if any of us think that we can solve water by going from point A, B to C, it's not going to happen. They resist definition and containment. So if you start to poke at a wicked problem and have an intervention, it's probably going to morph into something different. So you have to be mindful of that. They involve competing stakeholders and irreversible decisions. This is a personal favorite because everyone has a view on how to solve wicked problems, even what wicked problems are, and they're going to bring that to the table, which is a good thing and a bit of a challenge. And solving wicked problems requires system thinkers and social innovators. So people that can think at a very high level systemically about some of the challenges we're facing in the world of water. So the important part is who solves wicked problems. And when I was first introduced to wicked problems, I gravitated towards the notion that it takes everybody to solve wicked water problems. And what this is illustrating is that there's a range of stakeholders. They occupy a very special, somewhat unique space with respect to size and scale, speed and focus. So in the lower right, you will see the public sector, and you will see utilities, academic institutions. And it's not meant to be negative. It is to honor where they sit and what their attributes are, excuse me, that can be leveraged to solve wicked water problems. In the upper left, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got investors. Corporations sort of sit in the middle and they have the ability to move back and forth a little bit, depending on industry sector and culture. So we have to be mindful when we're really trying to solve wicked problems to engage with all of these stakeholder groups and speak the language that they understand and bring them to the table. And civil society is a very key player in all of this, so education and awareness is a really important part. Where does this go? I'm a big fan of business ecosystems, thinking about how to put together coalitions of stakeholders that have common challenges and have aligned on some of the interventions that we have to bring to the table. So collaboration is essential. It's really key to, I believe, innovation in the world of water. Business ecosystems enable parallel innovation. It means that individual entities can engage in interventions that are contributing to solving wicked water problems, but they can also collaborate And hopefully they collaborate with a large group of the right stakeholders that are being brought to the table. And aligned action drives security and resilience. So it's really key to think about, in my view, water is a wicked problem, how it interfaces with a variety of other issues that are important to the public sector and the private sector, and then also, how do you solve them? Wrong way. Okay. So just a couple of reports that are out there in the marketplace that I think are worth mentioning. Take them with a grain of salt. You know, there's no shortage of reports that are coming out these days. Xylem issued a report on watering the new economy. It was primarily focused on the rise of AI, data centers, and what's needed in terms of the supply side of the demand side of the equation. So it's an interesting report. Basically, there's nothing new here. They talk about reuse, leakage reduction. We saw some interesting technologies this morning, and then driving water efficiency. World Economic Forum published a report right around Davos this year. They talked about the infrastructure gap. I'm not really a fan of focusing on gaps, but it is interesting in terms of where they believe there is inadequate funding for certain key aspects of water-related issues. Corporate water strategy, this is really how I spend the bulk of my time, working with U.S., non-U.S. multinationals, technology providers that support those companies. No surprise, the biggest challenges that we're facing can be generalized around water scarcity, driven primarily by climate change, but also other factors that drive scarcity and water stress, extreme weather events from climate change. Where I live in the American West, we're seeing aridification, so long-term change in the climate is impacting the hydrologic cycle. Aging infrastructure, we are really not investing enough in infrastructure, and I would argue we're investing in last century infrastructure for the most part. And soaring demand, obviously increasing demand for water driven by AI, but driven by other key factors. Can't do anything without that gallon or liter of water. So how do you ensure there's enough water to fuel the economy, but also ensure that we have healthy ecosystems? When corporations think about water as a business risk, they think about it in terms of 3 dimensions. Physical risk, that's quantity and quality, regulatory risk, current risk and projected risk, and then reputational risk. Anyone with a social media account can comment on how a corporation or utility or the public sector is managing their water, and that's incredibly powerful. Leading corporations look at those 3 dimensions of risk, current state, and then also project it out over time, whatever time frame they use for planning, and they look across their entire value chain, not just their operational footprint, but their upstream supply chain, and in some cases, how their products are used in the marketplace. And then they quantify business value at risk. Again, current business value at risk and projected as a way to think about how do they make investments. This is a maturity model. I'm a consultant. Consultants use maturity models. It's a convenient way of thinking about how things have progressed over time with a particular topic and where certain corporations or entities fit in this maturity journey. So lower left, not very mature, not a lot of business value, but it's essentially where we all started. Water was a regulatory issue, it was a compliance issue, and there was some discussion and some value creation from driving water efficiency. What has happened over the past 15 plus years is that we've moved to water stewardship. Alexis is going to talk about this in greater detail, but it's a recognition that the role of the private sector has an important place in ensuring that risk is minimized and we have enough water for a multitude of purposes. So you start to see companies that are engaged in supply chain engagement issues, understanding how that's a big part of their, not just water footprint, but water risk. Some companies look at it across their entire value chain, as I pointed out. And then the language of water stewardship has now moved to replenish, or water positive, or net positive. Where I believe we're going is this upper right, which in my view delivers greater business value, greater impact. It doesn't mean that we abandon water management or water stewardship. It just means that we're adding on top of it. And one could argue that it's really no different than water stewardship. It's just a different way of adding dimensions to it that we hadn't really been able to do in the past. I like the upper right because it really focuses on innovation, not just in technology, but new business models, funding and financing, and partnerships, which I keep emphasizing because it's really the lever to pull in terms of solving wicked water problems. So then you start to get into a narrative around water positive and what that means and how it's being driven, hopefully, beyond just looking at water footprint. Some examples of companies that I think are interesting that are mostly doing it right. So AB InBev, largest beer company in the world, Pepsi, Microsoft is interesting in terms of what they've done over the past several years. So I believe that's where things are headed. Another key aspect of what corporations are doing that are in a leadership position is thinking about how to break down the silos of just looking at water, looking at energy, climate, biodiversity issues, and stacking value from these investments. It makes it a lot easier to get corporate funding if you can start to bundle these together and quantify the value creation from making that investment, as opposed to looking at these issues as a cost center or just looking at them in a silo. It's not very healthy, and it really doesn't deliver a lot of value. So a number of companies are doing some really interesting things right now. I would say the most interesting to me is when corporations are really starting to merge water and nature strategies, and maybe even in some cases fold water into a nature strategy. So nature and water integration, companies like Nestle and Unilever, water scale stewardship, there's a number of companies that are making investments in not just building, supporting healthy watersheds, but maintaining them. And then infrastructure is a strategic asset. And I think this is really interesting. We talked a little bit about data centers and the demand for water. How about we flip this around? How about we get data center companies, hyperscalers, to think about themselves as having an important role to play in a watershed, essentially being a hybrid utility in a way. Innovation, tech, and partnerships. For me, I believe these are the three moving parts that are really important. Digitization, the digital transformation of the water sector has been going on for maybe a decade, and it has taken off. It took off during the pandemic, and I would say that the public sector, I believe, does a better job in terms of digital technology adoption than the private sector, which sounds counterintuitive, but I believe it's really interesting and supported by facts. Decentralization. So right now we have centralized utilities. We're beginning to see technology solutions in the built environment, neighborhood scale, even moving towards extreme decentralized, and then innovation and corporate partnerships. Some examples of technology companies, digital technology companies. You can name a number of companies under each one of these categories, but digital tech is pretty much mainstream right now, and that is incredibly powerful and incredibly important. One thing that we don't talk about a lot is the role of geospatial analytics, so geospatial data acquisition, analytics, and how do you couple that with on-the-ground sensors, and equally important, how do you couple that with financial modeling? So taking all of the data and understanding what the financial impact is to both the public and the private sector. That's a really key factor in all of this. This book is worth reading, even if you just read the synopsis. It's the technology fallacy. It's not about the water sector. It's about how to adopt digital technologies and get them to stick. Key point here is that leadership, strategy, and culture is absolutely critical in the adoption of digital technology. So I keep emphasizing the human side of the equation here as being absolutely essential. And I talk a lot about catalytic communities. It's essentially collective action with a few attributes added to it. We believe that it's gaining traction, gaining interest as a concept, and actually coming into practice. So diversity of perspectives, shared purpose, which I touched on. Catalytic communities create something, whether it's a tool or a new business model, whatever it may be. They have a bias for action. It goes back to my comments about unreasonable people. They challenge the status quo, and they have economic relationships between the key players. If people are getting paid as part of a partnership, it might sound corrupt, but it's a financial engine to get things done. So as we think about collective action, I would just say that's probably the key thing to add. And Water United, it's focused on the Colorado River Basin, where I'm located, and these are a number of the companies that have signed up to engage in this collective action initiative and do some things that are a little bit different in terms of how they are building partnerships and funding and financing models. And then the path forward, a few key comments here. This is from a report or two. I draw your attention to nature-based solutions, the importance of that. Again, it's not just about hard technology, it's about understanding how to support nature. And lower right, again, I keep coming back to human-centered communication. So if we're really going to have a positive impact, we need to speak to the layperson, and in a way that they understand not about one more crisis, but what are the solutions that are in hand and how they can be part of that. And this is my favorite quote. I'm a big sci-fi fan. This is William Gibson, who created the cyberpunk genre. I believe this to be true. And this is how I spend part of my time, which is ensuring that I understand where the future resides in technology and partnerships and so on, and strategies, and making that mainstream and bringing it to the attention of people that maybe didn't know about it. So anyway, I'm an optimist. That's how I view the world. So thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
자, 다음 연사를 바로 소개해 올리도록 하겠습니다. 이분께서는 올해 국제포럼을 찾아주셨는데요. 세계 최대 규모의 환경 보호 기구죠. WWF 소속의 Global Water Stewardship을 이끌고 계신 분입니다. Mr. Alexis Morgan. Please take this.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and a big thank you to K-Water and to the Ministry for the invitation to join today. I'm today going to be speaking on these linkages between water stewardship, water positive, and restoration of ecosystems, which is really central to all of this. So I'll be going through several different areas and topics, and this just gives you an outline of the 4 areas that I will be discussing. Talking about ecosystems, talking about these reflections and how it links to water positive, talking about some recent trends, and then talking about the pathway forward. This is really a core piece of the story. When ecosystems are working properly, things work properly. When they don't, we have problems. We get pollution, we get overextraction, and freshwater ecosystems right now are suffering in the mix of things. The question I would ask, and I would hope that would be on the minds of many people, is why does ecosystems, or why do freshwater ecosystems matter? Why do they matter to business? Why do they matter to government? Why do they matter to communities? Now, this is a picture of where I come from, in just outside of Vancouver. And this was taken several years ago. The day was November 21st, or 17th to the 21st. It was a range in 2021. And we had a large weather event that came in. We just had rain come, and it was day after day after day of rain. And this was the result. We had contamination of water supply, we had pollution because this is an agricultural area, and so there was a lot of manure that spread out. It was obviously a major flood risk issue, and there were a lot of problems, be it for food security, local property damage, many things. This also had a major impact on businesses throughout the area, because the road you see in the middle is the main highway that goes in and out of Vancouver. And so at the end of the day, why this is relevant to biodiversity and to ecosystems is that historically, every bit of the water that would have come in here actually would have flowed to a lake and a wetland area that has been converted into farming area now. That is the outlet. That is the way in which nature wants to go in order to protect everything else. It needs to flood. It needs to go into these areas. And when we stop that from happening, it does these things instead. Today, we're actually, there's a brand new report, which you'll see on the next set of slides, talking about the importance and the value of freshwater ecosystem restoration. This outlines kind of a picture of what a lot of our systems look like right now. They are very degraded. They have all of these problems. They suffer from droughts, they suffer from pollution issues, but a lot of that is a function of ecosystems being degraded. When they're restored and when we bring them back, they bring a number of different benefits. They slow water down. They clean water up. They help on many, many different fronts, and they help businesses, communities, ecosystems, businesses, governments, and everybody else together. All of that is in this report, and I would encourage you to have a look at it. It does have a number of different case studies associated with it from around the world, talking about what are the benefits of river and wetland restoration work. Now, if I take that and go a little step further, why does this matter specifically to businesses? Well, when we have these problems, when ecosystems are impaired and water is scarce and so forth, what you see are the following things. First, you see operational interruptions. Businesses cannot continue their day-to-day actions, and therefore they usually have to reduce output, and that costs them money. Secondly, you see damage to assets. Flooding causes damage to factories, to facilities, to infrastructure, and that has real-world costs for businesses. Thirdly, it results in increases of costs to energy, cost of water, cost of materials to go into things. And lastly, if you don't have permission to operate, and we're seeing this with data centers in particular across much of the world right now, if you don't have communities that want you to be there, you're not going to stay there. You're going to get into trouble. And that has real-world delays, costs, and sometimes an inability to operate entirely. As you think about that, though, there are different solutions. There are gray solutions, there's technology solutions, and there are green solutions, or natural capital, as we would call it, or ecosystems. And ecosystem restoration is a very cost-effective way of solving many of these problems. WWF talks a lot about water stewardship as a journey, And as Will was pointing out, that begins with management and eventually moves to these ideas of collaboration, of working together and in engaging with others on policy and governance. This is a definition of water stewardship. And again, Will already outlined a little bit of these ideas around upstream, downstream, and operations as part of a value chain. Now, water, according to the Sustainable Development Goals, covers across access to sanitation, it covers quantity and scarcity, it covers quality, it covers governance, and it covers ecosystems. So when we look at those things, it's really important to start to think about that in the context of water positive. Because one of the dangers about water positive is that people think of it just as the volume part. And water positive must be more than just a volume. So we need to make sure it doesn't live just in operations and just around quantity. Sometimes that's where it can end up with companies, and we need to make sure that we embrace it as a bigger concept that embraces all of these dimensions of water. So when it comes to water positive, let's make sure we frame it as more than just an operational volumetric way to offset scarcity. It has to be more than that. But equally, when we think about ecosystems, the same thing holds true. When we have these opportunities to implement water positive, we have to think about the ways that we stack the benefits. Again, Will was mentioning some of these. How does it benefit carbon? How does it benefit pollution? How does it benefit scarcity? Sure, but how does it benefit all of these other areas as well? WWF has written a lot of materials on this. We wrote some guidance on some of the challenges and things to be careful about when it comes to issues around water positive and replenishment. I won't go into those. There's a lot of material here, and I put this in as much for a resource for everybody here today to come away with. But I think there are challenges and questions around it, and I think as we think about scaling up water positive, which unquestionably we need to do, we have to tread carefully and make sure that it's a proper approach. Now, I'm going to move on to some trends in terms of where we're headed in this whole space. Because like Will, I like to try to stay a step ahead and talk about where the future is in all of this. This is a report we put out last year, and it was based upon global polling, over 30,000 people, over 350 experts from across the world. There were a number of different insights out of this, and I'm not going to go through all of the depth of material in this, but the first point from this is that both for the public not only puts water very high on the agenda, but in particular, the public cares a lot about water pollution. And I think that that really is something that we have to keep in mind. Equally, when we talk to experts, issues around biodiversity and climate change and resilience really come out to the top of this. And so let's bear that in mind as we go forward. Now, when it comes to water stewardship and what experts were saying was the most effective way to actually implement water stewardship, people were talking about, well, first we should reduce our own water use. But after that, it was about collaboration. Even in the business experts really do recognize the importance of collaboration in the mix of all of this. This is a piece of information around, again, what the public would like to see companies do. And again, it's really important to note here that the public wants to see companies tackle water pollution, and after that, they want to see companies tackle protection of lakes, rivers, and ecosystems. What they don't care that much about is actually using less water. But when we look at what companies are doing, they focus on using less water and talking about using less water. So we have a disconnect in that. We also had conversations around what was effective and all these, and again, the messaging in all of this is engaging in working together was seen as the way to do this. So in other words, we need to work together to tackle water pollution and ecosystem restoration. That is where the focus needs to be. The final thing on this that I would flag is it's also important to note that the term water positive is not one that is well understood by people. So I think we need to be careful as we use the term that we're not losing people in the story. We need to tell stories. That is what humans are very good at, and it's what speaks to people. So let's not lose them in the term. Let's explain to them how it benefits them. How does this help protect water? How does it help restore nature, restore ecosystems? That's the language that was really speaking to the public, that people in the public really like to hear about. They didn't really understand these ideas of replenish and water positive. So let's be careful as we tread on these things, because we have to make sure that as we frame water positive, we don't lose the story of restoring nature and restoring water. The last few things that I'll flag here is that also the public really wants to see businesses collaborate with the government. I think it's fantastic that today's session is really involving the combination of business and the government, but it is what people want to see. They want to see that collaboration happening, and so absolutely that's something that we need to see more of. So there are a number of shifts here, whether it's working together through collective action, working together on joint policy, seeing water as a way to connect together, and making sure that at the end of the day, we are collaborating and avoiding jargon. We need to be careful around that as we go forward. The last couple of things I'll flag are one example of this collaboration. The Freshwater Challenge is an initiative that is a global effort to restore 300,000 kilometers of degraded rivers and restore 350 million hectares of wetlands. In addition to it being a country-led initiative, there's also a way for the companies to participate in this as well. And it's a really great example of where water positive is being brought together with ecosystem restoration, public and private, into an effort that is really world-changing and ambitious. We're seeing this land all over the world, so these are the places where the countries have been signatories to it, but we're seeing projects land all over the world. And it's something that I would encourage the Korean government and for companies in Korea to consider going forward, because it's a great way to drive this kind of collaboration that we need. The last couple of things here are this report. This was a great report that was put out last year, again, talking about the fact that investment in freshwater ecosystems has doubled over the past decade to nearly $50 billion. And during that time, private sector spending has increased 30-fold. So we are seeing a rise. But with that said, 97% of the funding that is going into nature, freshwater ecosystems, is still the public sector. So we have to think about how the limited private sector dollars are creating leverage to the 97% of public sector dollars that are out there. That's the key here, thinking about how we work together, public and private. Finally, this piece on collective action talks about that. There are, again, a number of resources here. I'm not going to speak about this in depth, but a number of organizations are increasingly thinking about how we can work together as Will said, a catalytic community to try to change things going forward. So that leaves the question, where are we going from here? I would argue a few things. One, this is a journey, and it really is one that ultimately leads us towards ecosystems and governance. We need to collaborate on those pieces. Secondly, freshwater ecosystem restoration is an absolutely central part of this. I hope if I have the opportunity to come back to this event in a few years' time, that when we go out to the trade floor, it's not just companies with pipes and pumps and those sorts of things, but also people starting to talk about ecosystem restoration, because it's a critical piece of infrastructure that we need, and we need to think about how we scale that with the public sector. As we build on the term water positive and encourage it and drive it forward, we have to make sure that we're telling a story that goes beyond scarcity in the mix of things. And lastly, as we go towards 2030 and beyond, we really have to build on these key initiatives, the frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals, initiatives like the Alliance for Water Stewardship or the Freshwater Challenge, as well as the Water Resilience Coalition. These efforts are trying to bring parties together to get to scale. And so I would leave you with that. We need to collaborate. Collaboration is the only way we will succeed going forward. With that, I would like to say thank you and have a wonderful day.
So we just heard the second presentation from Mr. Alexis Organ. And so the first two presentations focused on explaining the concept of water positive and its trends. Now, the next two presentations will be an opportunity to hear from a company and K-Water that are actually putting water positive into practice. So I'm going to introduce the next speaker. So the third keynote presentation will be delivered by Mr. Gu Tae-wan, manager at Samsung Electronics, on water-positive activities centered on global corporate water management goals. So Samsung Electronics have great experience of cooperating between public and private sector. Everyone, please welcome him with a big round of applause. Hello. My name is Gu Tae-wan from Environment Team Global Manufacturing and Infra Technology in Samsung Semiconductor. So we build the strategy for water stewardship strategy. And let me talk about my background first. So I started my career back in 2009 in Samsung Electronics, and as it was explained before, I started working on building our water stewardship strategy in the company. So around 2020 and 2021, there was a new term introduced to water positive to public sectors in Korea, and I learned that the term started scaling out, and first when I heard the term, I thought that this concept is going to just disappear after 1 year, but it wasn't. It turns out that more companies are starting to apply this term, and by 2022. I introduced the team and the company saying that it seems that more corporates are starting to adopt this term, and our company is not free from this term as well. So I made a request to our company saying that we need to start working on this, and thankfully our company was willing to accept my proposal. So we started working on this term, and so. So I kept introducing that we also need to adopt this water positive implementation, and my company was very active, and also K-Water even received my proposal. So thankfully, we were able to start our partnership. We were a bit late compared to other companies globally, but our country, Korea, the public sector and private sector were really active, starting adopting this concept and implementation. So now, speaking about it today in this round of the event, it's very meaningful to me. So my presentation today is going to be about introducing the water stewardship from Samsung Semiconductors. So first section is going to focus on environmental goals and progress, and the second point of my agenda is going to focus on water stewardship. So as you all know very well, without a semiconductor, how can our lives go on? We cannot even imagine it, right? And now we even have this automated vehicles, and now we have AI deeply getting into our lives, and all of these have a lot of water usage, and you may wonder why a semiconductor needs a lot of water. But now, this running semiconductor in the manufacturing fabs needs a lot of water, and not only that, but we need to ensure stable supply of water and maintain high quality of that water. So we don't only use water, but also a lot of generated powers. So after our semiconductor manufacturing, definitely we have a lot of pollutants, and also we have wastewaters, and also we even emit greenhouse gas. So in this situation, we needed to be a bit more responsible. So in order to be responsible, we came up with these 4 goals. So first was to reach net zero, and second was keep water withdrawal low, and third was waste recycling, and fourth was put the pollutants into natural state by 2040. So about the second goal especially, our goal is to keep water withdrawal to 2020 level in 2030. And if you look at the third goal, we want to recycle our waste by 19.9% by 2030, and we want to keep the air and water pollutants in natural state by 2040. And today, I'm going to focus on the second part of our goal. So, as it was mentioned in Mr. Alex's presentation, the term water stewardship was emphasized a lot, right? So when we say, water stewardship, actually, in Korea, we use the term, water management way more than water stewardship. So when I heard the term water stewardship, it didn't really come to me directly. The term kind of felt distant to me. And but as I started learning through the term water stewardship, I learned that it's not just a water management by one company. It's going to be about creating ecosystem through the diverse involvement of stakeholders toward the water management. And based on this water stewardship, we came up with these plans. So if you look at the first, we focused on water quantity and water quality, and also managing ecosystem. And the fourth goal was, in order to have this activity, we learned that we needed to build a very good governance. And the fifth goal was, we're not going to be complacent with our 4 goals implementation, but also we needed to have a very good communication with the local communities. And thanks to our activities, Alliance for Water Stewardship, AWS, gave us the platinum status. So now we received platinum not only in Korea but also our fabs in China as well. So let me focus on more on regarding our water source. So I just mentioned that semiconductor needs a lot of water usage, right? So actually we use 310K tons of water per day. Well, we used to back in 2021, but by 2030. Actually, we are going to need like twice of water of our water usage back in 2021. But I know we need a lot of more water, but we knew that we cannot really use this raw water more and more. So even if we are going to need twice of more water, we are going to actually reduce water usage. So in order to meet this goal, we are going to have a lot of activities, and that means we are going to have water reuse, and that's going to be our key factor. And also, we are going to have like over 300K of water reuse. So we started having collaboration work with MCEE, the Ministry of Climate and Energy and Water, and so we finished building our plan, and now we are going through the administrative evaluation process at the moment. So we believe that by end of 2030, we are going to have the this reclaiming of wastewater. So as you can see here, we are going to have this map of municipal reclaimed wastewater. So you can see that we have the fab in King and Hwasun and also in Pyeongtaek, but we are going to get this wastewater from these places. So that means we are going to save more than 300K of water per day. And next is the, for today's forum's agenda. So this is water positive, but actually, you know what? The concept of water positive, and the implementation of that is really, it depends on each corporate. So we kind of have the freedom. So when we say water positive implementation, we want to have way more water discharge, more than a waste withdrawal, and on top of that, we want to keep the very good quality of restoration. So then, in the semiconductor industry, why are we going to have a lot of loss of water? Because we get the water, and then we use a lot of equipment, and then we have the cooling tower. And when we run the cooling tower, based on the climate, the condition, the water is lost. Some of water lost and we get the water discharge from the dam. So I would say actually right now 20% of the water from the water withdrawal that we have is lost. So we are going to have a lot of restoration of water. So I just mentioned that 20% of the water is lost from our withdrawal, right? So this 20% is going to be restored. So we had this alliance built in 2024, and last year, finally, 2025, through the collaboration with public and private sector, we were able to establish this artificial wetland restoration. So this is what we just built. If you look at the very left picture, this is what we built. So we are now able to restore 3.85 million cubic meters per year thanks to this wetland. And if you look at the middle picture, so actually some of our military bases in Korea are located in the middle of mountains, and they face water shortages because of that local characteristics. And so as you all know, in Korea, we have flooding season as well. And during flood season, we get a lot of rainwater. But on the other hand, in winter, we have droughts. So we are running this project to keep that rainwater. So we are going to have this cut-off wall. And this is going to end sometime in 2027. And if you look at the very left side, we have this pumping facilities reinstallation. So places where they grow rices, their harvest ends in the late fall, and after that, even the water is clean. They just send it away. And now we want to keep that water. That's why we are going to have this pumping facilities reinstallation. So if we're going to finish this work, we believe that 0.6 million cubic meters per year can be restored. So other than these, notable projects, we have plans to have more projects for water positive. And when I wanted to start this a water positive project, I even contacted WWF, and the organization said that I got the feedback saying that in Korea it's really hard to start these kind of projects, but I think that we are becoming more positive about it. And next is going to be a really short introduction. Just like water, nature is very important, right? So there is TNFD. So as you all know, this is the task force, and now we need to prepare for such monitoring works. So in order to respond to TNFD's initiatives, actually we've been, analyzing the environment and ecosystem around our fabs in the last 3 to 4 years. So we are keep tracking the environment right now. So we had these kind of monitoring activities. So we started our activity just around Gihung and Hwasong fabs, but now we have this kind of monitoring activity going on in new fabs area, which is Pyeongtaek. And And also, we've been monitoring the wastewater that we make since 2007. So this is the analysis that we have, and you can see that our that the wastewater is getting lower and lower. And next is so we call it nature positive as well. So this is a term that we made. So we are trying to come up with ways where we can integrate, or at least that we can have the nature positive and water positive implementation going on in parallel together. So for all the areas that we need. We think that ecosystem needs to be restored. We have this kind of joint activity going on. So we have the activity to secure ecosystem around Paltang Dam in Korea. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. Among many global companies, Samsung Electronics is regarded as one of the leaders in water positive. It was very meaningful to hear from Samsung Electronics. Next, we move on to the final keynote presentation. And then we are going to have a Q&A session after hearing from our last speaker. In this era of climate change, representing K Water, which is responsible for water management in Korea, Mr. Park Dong-hwa, head of the environmental division, will present on 2030 Korea Water Positive Activation Strategy. Please give a big round of applause to welcome him. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Park Dong-hak, and I'm from K Water. Following last year, I'm participating in this fund. Today, I'm going to talk about our revitalization strategies for 2030 Water Positive. This is the content of my presentation. Background, 2030 Water Positive Revitalization Strategy, detailed missions and roadmap. First, background. We are now entering a new era of water. So this is considered a very complicated challenge that we have to work together with our global partners. The United Nations also held the second UN Water Conference in 46 years in 2023, highlighting the importance of water management. Recently, AI transition and the rapid growth of advanced technologies are leading to water shortage problems. Semiconductors, AI infrastructure, and all the technologies require more water than before. At the same time, climate change is exacerbating, and the United Nations also defined the drought that hit 6 continents from 2023 to 2025 as an unprecedented global disaster of historic scale. The global capital market is hit hard by water crisis. That is why the capital market is asking all the listed companies around the world to strengthen their water risk identification and management strategies through CDP environmental disclosure, for example. In the climate disclosure of the EU, all the mandatory requirements such as sustainability report and the due diligence guidelines are included. In order to keep pace with the global trend, the Korean government is trying to promote 2025 domestic water positive revitalization strategies. Going forward, cooperation-based strategies is required, especially the private sector and the public sector have to work together in the same direction. And as part of these efforts, in 2025, last year, the Ministry of Climate, Energy, and Environment made a very important collaborative framework The government is managing the alliance operation by designing relative policies, and public sector K-Water is trying to identify alliances and business strategies. Next, 2030 water positive revitalization strategies. We actually conducted the SOAR analysis, and our conclusion is that in order to overcome the water crisis and achieve ESG management, sustainable initiatives must be promoted. And we need to scale up our efforts on the global stage. And we need to promote convergence between different initiatives. And we also have to make a lot of effective and real-world strategies to connect the businesses and the technologies. We also have come up with 6 action plans, which include expanding external growth while reinforcing internal fundamentals, increasing initiatives for promotion and brandings, advancing domestic strategies and systems, and the rest. Next, our missions and roadmap. Our first mission is to increase awareness of the initiative, especially relevant initiatives, by promoting our efforts in and out of Korea. We are going to make materials for promotion and PR so that more people will be able to engage in our efforts. The second mission is to increase the alliance and advance the cooperation. We have to embrace more participants of the alliance, and we have to advance our cooperation efforts by expanding innovation ecosystem in the private sector, public sector, and the businesses. Third, we need to realize our ESG support for sustainable growth. So we have to update our guidelines, and we need to advance the domestic systems for water management. Our fourth mission is to identify businesses and carry out various private, public sector collaboration projects. We are going to identify more mega-sized projects so that we can achieve sustainable water management, innovation, and growth. Next, we need to expand our restoration efforts for water and the nature. In particular, we need to make some accomplishments when it comes to ESG. Last but not least, global climate technology, revitalization, and water management system innovation must be accomplished at the same time. So we are going to expand our climate technology innovation platforms, and we will converge various capitals for water management, and we will also improve our budget systems for co-investment. Korea is now carrying out a 2030 strategy roadmap with 3 steps. By doing so, we are going to be one of the leaders for water positive. So far, I've talked about many relevant topics. K-Water is going to continue to lead the dedication for water management. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to the Q&A and panel discussion. We have heard from 4 speakers. Now I would like to invite you to the 30-minute Q&A session. After the stage is set, we are going to start the panel discussion session, and we will invite 6 panelists, including the moderator, onto the stage. Today, we aim to cover many topics, and at the same time, we are going to be very compact so that we will be able to stick to the time limit. Please stay with us until the end of the program. Please stay tuned. Now, this is the last session. We're going to join. Please wait for a moment at your seat. After the stage is set, we are going to have the Q&A and panel discussion session. 6 panelists and the moderator are going to participate in the session. You will be able to see the names and the positions of the participants. Now, I'd like to invite you to the Q&A and the panel discussion. I think that we are ready to start. So let me invite the moderator and the panelist. Please come up to the stage. Panelist and the moderator, please come up to the stage.
I haven't informed you before. We have snacks prepared, but I think you already are enjoying the snacks. So it's nice to see that. So we have a precious distinguished guest in one place. This is a very precious round of panel discussion. So I believe that all these 6 panelists will give a fruitful insights today, and I'm going to introduce our panel discussion chairman. So I'm going to pass my microphone to Professor Park Hyung-gun-님. So actually, can you say hi to our participants? Yes. Hello, I'm Park Hyung-gun. I'm professor of sustainable management at Inha University, and nice to meet you all. So I am the professor, but at the same time in Silicon Valley, we have this company called Capture 6, and I'm the vice president of Capture 6. It seems we don't have much time today. We are kind of running out of time here, so I think we need to start our panel discussion right away. And since we have more Korean participants here, I'm going to speak in Korean, and maybe to our foreign panelists, I'm going to speak in English. And so we all heard the presentation from all panelists here. So I don't think I need to introduce every single of them again, because we are running out of time anyway. But we have the special panelist here, Lee Hyung-sop. So we should greet him later again. So I kind of I feel that I have an important role to play here. So we heard great cases from each key speakers today. And there was good case from Samsung Electronics and also K-Water as well. And of course, other 2 panelists gave good insights and also good advices in their presentations. So it seems, more than any other companies, I think these advanced companies are, creating very, fruitful examples. And I believe that, Water Positive is not just another initiative, but also this is going to be a very important paradigm that is going to be embedded in our society. So really, we are running out of time today. So let's start our panel discussion right away. And maybe at the last part of the discussion, maybe we can have like 3 minutes Q&A among attendees here. So yeah. So as I just said. We have Mr. Lee Hyung-sop, the director from Climate and Water Usage Policy Division. So, and as you know, this was a very good opportunity where we learned that Water Positive is being implemented in Korean corporates. And it seems that now the policy has to be built, and not only that, but also the execution of that policy is going to be important, right? So it'd be great if you can give us insight about implementing that water positive policy. Hello. So from MCEE, I'm in charge of building a water positive related policy, and my name is Lee Hyung-sung. Nice to meet you all. So thank you for asking such a question. So we invited Mr. William and Alex. So we heard great insights from them, and this is something that I want to introduce our policy to these two great panelists as well. Um, you know, just unlike other countries, the Korean government is taking its leading role for implementing water positive. And last year there was a great effort in the Korean government to embed water positive, really, and the government started, coming up with a new related projects, and starting this year. In the near future, not only starting project, but the government wants to focus on implementing such policies. So let's say last year we had great project with the Samsung Electronics last year, and so so in implementing our project, we had lessons learned. Um, so so we wanted to leave the history of our project implementation so that it can be viewed by other people and they can learn from it. And in order to leave this history of the project, we needed to have a very clear number measurements. And in order to have great measurements, we created guide from our ministry. So it's not that we just created from scratch. We collected the examples around us, and we tried to come up with a very standardized measurement guide. So we wrote the guideline, and thanks to that, so based on that guideline, had the measurements of our project result with Samsung Electronics last year. And not only that, in the near future, we are going to have the list of registration where these water positive related projects results histories can be recorded. So it's not going to be left in just one public servant's computer in our ministry. It's going to be shared. It's going to be available to everyone in the country, and actually not only current. Of course, the people in this room, you guys know about water positive, but not a lot of Korean citizens know about water positive, and we have great, we have great panelists here, Mr. Alex and Mr. Will, and we kind of want to introduce to you, what we are doing in Korea as well. And also later, we want to share this successful fruit to our international society in the future. Okay, thank you for the answer. Mr. Alex and Mr. Will is going to be our model of this water positive.
Both of you, feel free to take it as you feel more comfortable. So you both emphasize the role of the public-private partnership to drive initiatives like the water positive across the globe, and then of course what's happening in Korea as well. So I'm just curious, how do you see the water positive initiative is likely to evolve globally, and what are the lessons learned for countries like Korea, and what Korea can do more?
I'll try to keep this brief given that we are limited. I would say a few quick reflections. One, I think what was raised by Samsung and the link between water positive and nature positive is probably one of the evolutions that we will see. Linkages between water, biodiversity through nature is one trend that I think we will continue to see more of. The second thing, I think from a government perspective and thinking about the work that's been done here in Korea, I do think is world leading in many ways. We haven't seen the adoption of and the prominence of water coming through government policy. Cascading that down to a municipal level, I think is maybe one of the challenges that I would put back to the Korean government. thinking about how does a municipality like Busan take up water positive and implement it locally, because we need that at different levels of government and so forth. And maybe a third final comment I would say is, I would also, where we've seen water positive be successful, I think it involves not just public and private, but also civil society. I would encourage you to think about the role of actors like NGOs to help link people together, because collaboration requires linkages, and oftentimes civil society groups, local stakeholder groups, can really help to give you local connections and bring in diverse stakeholders. So that would be the final comment. Thank you.
I'll make it brief. I believe there's a unique opportunity for K-Water and Korea to take the lead on these issues. So we laid out a few thoughts on where things are going, and you can own that and socialize it and tell your story globally. So I would recommend build on what you have and embrace the fact that you have a unique construct between the public, the private sector, technology innovation, and you view water as a strategic asset. And that story needs to be told. And, you know, there's a lot of noise globally in terms of, wow, was it something I said? There's a lot of noise out there. Own where you want everything to go. And I just encourage you to get out there and tell your story and define what water positive is.
Thank you very much. Mr. Park introduced many projects promoted by K-Water, especially 2030 water positive revitalization strategy was introduced. This is to increase collaboration that embraces the public sector and the private sector and the businesses, as well as the civil society. So if you look at the big picture, I think that the framework is very ideal. So your strategy is different from the previous one. So please tell me in what point this strategy is different from the previous ones. So our strategies go beyond water management strategies. This is beyond the public sector strategy. So far, water management was primarily promoted by the public sector. However, businesses now have to participate in the commitment, and they now have an awareness that they have to do something to contribute to water management. That's why the collaboration that embraces the public sector and the businesses and the private sector work together. In this regard, as mentioned by the previous speaker, we are going to embrace the nature, going beyond the water management. I believe that that will be our future direction. So Korea will continue to embrace more concepts in environment so that we can contribute to water and environmental protection. Last but not least, Mr. Koo, as mentioned before, Samsung Electronics is playing a leading role and showing a great leadership. As a Korean person, I'm very happy to see that. However, unlike K-Water, Samsung Electronics is a private company. So from the perspective of management, I believe that you will have a different view and the thought. So what is your approach? What is Samsung Electronics' approach? Please tell me in detail. Water management commitments from the business sector centered around water management in literally for 5 to 10 years. And companies only focused on compliance for water management. However, global companies and many global companies out of Korea take a different view. As I mentioned before, they are now knowing about the stewardship. So this is not owned by businesses. This is shared by so many stakeholders in water. So water is regarded as an asset shared by so many stakeholders, and as a business that uses the specific asset, businesses think very thoroughly how to contribute to more effective and efficient water management. Actually, we announced the eco-friendly environmentally friendly strategies, and that strategy did not include water management related strategies. However, changes are being made within our organization, and water management is now considered by Samsung Electronics as one of the core future directions that we need to think about. So no matter no matter how much costs are required, we are going to enhance our commitments and we will continue to contribute to water management. Thank you very much.
So actually, the time is done, but maybe we can get one or last questions from participants. So someone raised your hand. Maybe you can speak in your preferred language. Hello. I'm from WWF Korea, and my name is Chung Hyun Min. So my question is this. You know, So it seems there are multiple plans to, cascade water positive initiative globally. But actually, there are Korean companies where they have business places not only in Korea but other countries. So I was wondering what kind of, what kind of water positive related projects are going to be done in those business places. So maybe my answer, that answer can be given by Samsung Electronics, maybe. Well, right now, we focus on our water positive related projects in Korea at the moment because, we kind of want to restore the wasted waters at the moment. So we have a very specific goal in Korea at the moment. But, actually this is already applied to some of our minor activities in our FABs in other countries. For example, we have, FAB in Texas, and also we are building our mid and long-term plan in that place. Actually, we are starting early in Korea, but after our project in domestic FAB, definitely we are going to give the guide to our overseas FABs. Do you have additional comment? Actually, when we say water positive, the target is very important, right? So we have the guideline given to corporates in Korea, but, when it's going to be overseas, the places, then business places, then, those have to follow those local regulations. That's the problem. So we made our guidelines, way earlier than what we expected. But, later, those places in overseas, this is something that we need to think about more. That was a very good question from our attendees here. Yeah, different countries have different regulations, and but we cannot really go separately. So somehow we have to be unified later. And let's say that right now we are in phase one, the beginning stage. And this is not going to be really, it's just one guideline cannot be applied to identically in all places, right? But our guideline that we made is going to be reviewed by the international society, and I believe that somehow we are going to have very similar standards later. So let's say the activity done by Samsung Electronics in Korea is really great, then maybe that can be applied to their fabs overseas, right? Of course, technically, it's not going to be identical. It's going to be difficult, but this is something that we need to consider.
I would just add that I think the Korean government has done, and K-Water have done an excellent job in the development of that guideline because it's built off of international best practices, which means there should be consistency with how that guideline were applied here in Korea, as well as if a Korean company were to take it and apply it outside of Korea, it's built upon the best practices that the rest of the global community has been working on. So it should be able to work for the most part, but I think what is going to be important is, again, the Korean government, the collaboration around how that plays out between public and private is very strong here. In most other places, it's not involved the public sector to the same level. And so I think there's a great story to be told about that collaboration and getting that to also happen in other places.
Innovation and partnerships. I think that's the, as they say, secret sauce in all of this. And taking that best practice and socializing it and ensuring that people understand that it is the most important lever to pull.
감사합니다. 네, 한 번만 질문 더 받고.
Good afternoon. My name is Hojin Won from Busan City, and I served as the division head of the government agency for 3 years before I worked for this organization. So we talked about many issues such as freshwater monitoring, water management, and especially Samsung Electronics, which is one of the leading companies around the world, is taking the lead in water management dedication, which is very meaningful. However, very toxic chemical materials in this region affect some ecosystem, and there are a lot of substances, hazardous substances that can affect the environment. Those are not tackled very effectively by Samsung Electronics, I believe, so we have to do some monitoring efforts in this direction. Semiconductor production requires some release of the toxic materials, and actually many regulatory efforts are being made by American companies. So I believe that Samsung Electronics has to take account to these factors and do some monitoring for those hazardous elements. And the second question is that Mr. William and Alex, my question goes to both of you.
The nature-based solution and then also the stewardship, such as importance of the ecological, the restoration. However, there is a gap between the public and the expert in South Korea because the expert, Alexis mentioned that the restoration of the nature and ecosystem is more valuable, but the public is more like a protect water and then the water-friendly, the utilization. So how would you consider, or how would I like to say, well, what we should do to, to kind of minimize those, gap between the public and expert?
먼저 답변 드리겠습니다. 정말 좋은.
Thank you very much for your comments and your guidance. I'm also working for the environmental missions, and I know that there are a lot of missions. There are a lot of issues in Busan City, and especially the usage of a river is also affecting a lot of ecosystem. In order to solve this problem, especially there is still a center that analyzes some environmental effects of hazardous materials surrounding the Nakdong River. As you mentioned earlier, we have some issues surrounding the hazardous chemical materials, and we use some chemical materials, and there are some concerns raised by the public over our usage of chemical materials, and we have been asked to disclose some related information. And as you mentioned earlier, we actually do some monitoring for those hazardous elements, and the specific materials are gaining global attention, and we never use that specific material. And some materials were designated as materials that need to be watched more closely, and I believe that our organization will join this efforts. But anyway, my point is that from 2024, we started an analysis for hazardous materials, and we have already started our monitoring efforts. And we're trying our best to show the public that we are trying to be responsible for our material usage.
So I would say two brief things. First, I think we need to do, as I said, which is tell stories and use our platforms, whether that is corporate communications, government communications, however we can tell the stories and tell them in a way that bridges between experts and the public. And the second thing I would actually send back over towards education, because I think education has a key role to play in all of this and how we train engineers and other experts in the water space. Making sure that we're bringing in ecology into engineering and cross-training on that, I think is really critical to get the credibility and the technical innovation and design of nature-based solutions and making that happen and facilitating that link.
Just a quick comment on language. No jargon, speak in very simple terms that people can understand. And get them excited about solving problems and opportunities and paint a positive view of what can be. I don't think we need one more crisis. So.
Thank you very much. So actually, Mr. William, emphasized he was an optimist, right? So, I believe that all the panelists here are a great optimist, right? So I wish we had more time, but, I think this is going to be the end of the panel discussion today. So I'm going to pass my microphone to the host. Okay, thank you, the moderator, and, please give a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all. So, our, closing comment is going to be very short, so please sit there. And yes, people, this is going to be the end of the event today. So thank you, everyone, for staying till the last minute of this event. So please take care of the souvenirs that you received today. So I was Chung Da-hee. Thank you all.